people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Official broadcast and undercard information has been released for the upcoming Andy Ruiz versus Ruiz-Ortiz heavyweight showdown. It appears that rising lightweight star Jose Valenzuela will duel former champion Jezreel Corrales and the telecast opener. Jezreel was the former WBA super champion at 130 pounds, but he blew the weight ahead of the Alberto Machado fight some years ago. Lost that title on the scales. Also on the card, three-division champion Abner Mares makes his long-awaited ring return against former title challenger Miguel Flores. That's the same Miguel Flores that Leo Santa Cruz faced upon his ascent to the 130-pound division for what was the newly vacated WBA title, the title that Gervonta Davis vacated, then came back for once Leo Santa Cruz won it in that Miguel Flores fight. Abner Mares has not fought in some years. Abner Mares, he was actually supposed to face Gervonta Davis. He was supposed to face Gervonta Davis well over 2 years ago in 2019. But he ended up pulling out of that fight as a result of an injured retina. Abner couldn't participate, and the fight fell through. That was in 2019. Abner Mares himself hasn't seen any action, any at all, since 2018 when he dropped a decision to Leo Santa Cruz. In that way, you're looking at a fighter who hasn't fought in the last 4 years. PBC's got a habit of recycling these old fighters, these old guys. It is a recurring theme over there. Recycling fighters like Robert Guerrero, Adrian Broner, Abner Mares, guys to where you see their name on an undercard and you ask yourself, should this guy even be fighting? Hell, I remember seeing Alfredo Angulo on one of their shows not that long ago. Abner's been doing a lot of commentator work. Didn't get the sense that he was mounting a comeback, if I'm being honest with you. And after 4 years of inactivity, what exactly is this? What does this herald? A world title run? This is being billed as a featherweight contest, and it just so happens that Leo Santa Cruz still reigns as the WBA's featherweight champion, though he's not the only pony the PBC have in that featherweight show. They also have reigning WBC champion Mark Magsayo. If Abner Mares is mounting a world title run, that is what this heralds. I hardly think he's looking to fight Leo Santa Cruz for a third time. He's already lost 2 fights to that guy. I'd wager that if he's vying for some kind of world title shot, it'd have to be against the winner of Mark Magsayo versus Ray Vargas. I'll tell you what this heralds. This heralds a thinning stable of fighters. Top Rank, some months ago, signed an entire treasure trove of up-and-coming talent, up-and-coming young fighters, fresh out of the amateurs. And that's not what you see over there at the PBC. They're basically just recycling the same pool of guys. They do have 1 or 2 unbeaten up-and-comers they're grooming, but not as many as Top Rank. The Davis brothers, Torres, Bruce Carrington, Xander Zayas, Jared Anderson, and that's not even everybody. That's not even all they've got. Whereas at the PBC, they're recycling fighters that maybe don't even need to be fighting. That seems to be how they aspire to sell this September 4th pay-per-view, this heavyweight showdown, the main course, the fight between Andy Ruiz and Ruiz-Ortiz. In truth, the fight does have some intrigue associated with it. It does, and ideally, you would see this on regular Fox or regular Showtime. This ain't the kind of fight that should come with a hefty cover charge, but it does, like many of the PBC's pay-per-view endeavors do. Mario Barrios versus Keith Thurman, Ruiz-Ortiz versus Charles Martin. At a time where we're getting unification matches like Stevenson versus Valdez, Artur Beterbiev versus Joe Smith Jr., undisputed title fights like Devin Haney versus George Kambosos or Jermel Charlo versus Brian Castano on Showtime. How could the people at Fox put together a card like this and think it's a good idea? How could they put together a card like this and aspire to turn over anything semblant of a profit. This is not a hot ticket. This is not a hot enough ticket that it should be on pay-per-view.
And that might seem obvious to me and you, but why isn't it obvious to the people at Fox?
We've often talked about the lack of quality control over there. What ends up on pay-per-view and what doesn't. And because this is a Fox pay-per-view, Fox, who many people anticipated would be leaving the sport of boxing last year, but they so chose to extend their deal with the PBC one more year, this year. I think they're just trying to...
Well, remember what the plan was. The plan was to do 4 to 5 pay-per-views annually.
And the deal between Fox and the PBC upon its inception was a 4-year deal. A lot of people anticipated that the deal might end early, might end after 3, but people at Fox so decided to extend it a 4th and final year, what could be a final year. And you see that Fox ain't exactly putting on a lot of boxing cards. They're not spending a lot of money on boxing matches.
Maybe this is just them trying to see out that deal and honor its terms as best as they can.
In tandem with attempting to satisfy the financial demands of 2 fighters, 2 heavyweights, who likely want to get paid well in excess of their actual market value. I'd wager that both Andy and Luis, they both likely want to make at least 7 figures for a fight between each other, and Fox ain't just going to give it to them. The only hope they have to get it is to stick them on pay-per-view and hope that the fans foot the bill.
Hope that the fans will help pay for the fight, because Fox ain't in the business of just giving money away.
In truth, nobody is. That's the only way I can reconcile a fight and a card like this ending up behind a paywall. It's the only way to make it make sense.
But bear in mind that Canelo vs. Golovkin 3 is happening that same month.
This pay-per-view between Andy and Luis is set to go down 1 or 2 weeks before it, but any fight fan looking to buy a pay-per-view in the month of September will likely reserve those funds for the bigger fight, the Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin trilogy.
It's like I've been saying, Ortiz versus Ruiz ain't a bad fight, but it ain't pay-per-view worthy.
In other news, this image was uploaded by way of 258 Management's Twitter account with a caption that reads, "Boxing Buatsi's journey is all set for Dmitry Bivol business. The WBA light heavyweight world title bout is within touching distance." And this is coming at a time when Zurdo Ramirez is expecting to get Dmitry in the ring.
This update by way of 258 Management.
Anthony Joshua's management company manages fighters like Joshua Buatsi, Lawrence Okolie, several others. They're talking about a Bivol fight for Joshua Buatsi. I said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't think Joshua Buatsi's ready for that fight, not based on what I saw in the Ricard Bolotnik's fight, the Craig Richards fight. Joshua Buatsi is a promising, unbeaten up-and-comer, but I don't actually think he's ready for the likes of Dmitry Bivol, though me being a boxing fan, if they make the fucking fight, I'm gonna watch the fucking fight.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch Joshua Buatsi lose it.
Nothing against him. For my money, the more intriguing fight and the more entertaining stylistic matchup would be Dmitry Bivol versus Zurdo Ramirez, though at this time, in spite of Zurdo's claims that he is in fact Dmitry Bivol's mandatory challenger, I know of no such order from the WBA ordering Dmitry to face Zurdo. And without an order, an actual mandate,
he's free to negotiate other fights with other fighters.
Like Joshua Buatsi, I know of no tentative date penciled in for this matchup. The people at 258 Management and whoever handles their social media, they uploaded this image teasing at a fight between Dmitry and Joshua, but if they're doing that, I don't know when it's supposed to go down.
I don't think Joshua Buatsi can test Dmitry Bivol the same way that Zurdo can. Zurdo is a physically imposing fighter.
Stylistically, for my money, Zurdo Ramirez, the statuesque light heavyweight, the southpaw, the former super middleweight champion, he poses more challenges to a fighter like Dmitry Bivol, a cerebral fighter, than Joshua Buatsi would, because Zurdo is going to at least try to force Dmitry to fight, get him out of his comfort zone, try to crowd him, try to hurt him on the inside. Whereas Joshua Buatsi, he's a good boxer, decent punch, does a lot of punch picking.
But he's not a volume guy, doesn't have a high work rate.
Joshua Buatsi is an efficient puncher with a decent-sized punch, but he's efficient. He doesn't go out there throwing for the sake of throwing, wasting shots, wasting punches. He looks for windows of opportunity to get off hard shots. And against a cerebral fighter, a defensively responsible one like Dmitry Bivol,
there aren't going to be very many, if any, windows of opportunity, because that guy don't make mistakes.
To get to a guy like Dmitry, you have to try and make it as rough and tumble as you can. Make it as physical as possible, and that involves a certain level of physicality. A level of physicality, I think, that Zurdo has that Joshua does not. I don't really think Joshua takes the best punch either.
I think Zerto's a more durable guy than Joshua Buatsi.
Certainly a more experienced one. Former champion with, what, close to 50 fights or something like it?
It needs to be said. Zerto Ramirez is more ready for this fight than Joshua Buatsi is.
But according to 258 Management's social media, it's Joshua Buatsi that's coming within arm's reach of Dimitri Bivol. Make of that what you will.
Either fight is fine by me, but the Zerto fight is a little better.
Zerto Ramirez said something about Dimitri Bivol signing the quote-unquote contract.
But based on this, your guess is as good as mine as far as what's really going on.
Anthony Yard was here, and he was saying, hey, I really want that fight in London. Is that the guy that you want the most, or is it really Bivol?
Not really. There is no comparison in terms of motivation for her team to fight Yardy, to fight Bivol. It's never personal. It's not about name. It's not about Yardy. Yardy is a great fighter. It's about belt. Archer, it's not about money. It's about belt. If you ask Archer today, if you want to fight Canelo or Bivol, even if Canelo bring more money, still today you want to fight Bivol because you want that fourth belt.
Gotcha. So is that the fight you're going to be pushing for the most next round?
Of course, this is what the motivator team. It's nothing against Bivol. Again, it's not about name. It's about opportunity to win belt.
Looks like there's going to be trouble in paradise. This video excerpt from Mark Ramsey, who trains Artur Beterbiev. This was immediately after the Joe Smith Jr. fight, and they're making it crystal clear which fights are a priority to them.
Fights?
Which fight, I should say. The Bivol fight, the undisputed light heavyweight title fight.
That's the one they've got their hearts set on, whereas the powers that be.
The promoters, Bob Arum and Frank Warren, they want something else. According to Old Fish Eyes Frank Warren, it's more or less agreed that Yard will fight Beterbiev.
More or less agreed. What does that mean?
Not a lot coming from Old Fish Eyes Frank Warren. He's the one who jumped the gun, announcing a Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker fight at a time when the fight wasn't finalized. It wasn't even done yet. That's how Joseph Parker was able to skip out on them and jump into bed with the people over there at Sky Sports and Boxer. He's jumped the gun before. Is he jumping the gun now when it comes to this fight?
Promoter Frank Warren of Queensberry Promotions,
who promotes Anthony Yard, expects his boxer to face unified light heavyweight champion Artur Beterbiev in the fall. Yard is the mandatory challenger under the World Boxing Organization. On Saturday night at the Hulu Theater in New York City, Beterbiev unified the WBO, IBF, and WBC world titles.
Yeah, that much we know already.
At this time, I know of no such order by way of the WBO mandating that Artur face Anthony next. Though given that Artur was just in action, an order could already be on the way. Frank Warren and Bob Arum have always had a good working relationship, at least on the face of it, and the both of them have always had a way with the WBO.
Well, how do you know?
How many times has Anthony Yard been the mandatory challenger for the WBO title? This is the second time he's become the mandatory for that particular belt, not the others.
There's a reason for that, you know.
It's more or less agreed. We're looking to fight Beterbiev in October in London. Bob and I have agreed we'll do the fight, but they're going to be ordered to fight Yard anyway. It will be a great fight, Warren told BBC Sport. Arum had previously mentioned that the Beterbiev versus Yard showdown would likely take place in the UK. Yard tried to capture the WBO crown back in 2019 when he traveled to Russia to challenge then-champion Sergey Kovalev. The British punch came close to capturing gold as he badly hurt Kovalev and had him ready to go. But he punched himself out whilst attempting to knock Kovalev out. Kovalev was able to recover and stop Yard in the 11th round. He was Sergey Kovalev's mandatory challenger, the same way he's Artur Beterbiev's mandatory challenger.
It's murky right now.
It's not quite clear what's going to happen. Team Beterbiev says they want the Bivol fight. Dimitri Bivol himself has expressed an interest in facing Artur, though at the same time, 258 management is hinting at a Buatsi versus Bivol fight. So is Zerto Ramirez.
He's hinting at a Bivol fight.
Frank and Bob is saying that Beterbiev versus Yard is all but done, even though Team Beterbiev, they want Bivol.
And because Artur Beterbiev is 37 going on 38 years old, the sooner he gets him, the better.
Fighting Anthony Yard, that's just a formality. That's not necessary right now. Time is of the essence. And if they're operating in the fighter's best interest to keep him a champion and keep him in the winner's bracket, they'd be trying to make a Beterbiev versus Bivol fight sooner than later.
So you are with Eddie Hearn, no?
At the moment.
At the moment.
Yeah.
So you only have one fight left?
I can't talk about it right now. When is this live?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then yeah, I'm with Eddie.
I love that one. So, because my thing is, and you're also with 258. Oh shit.
Same answer.
Oh.
Yes.
At the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in keeping with the theme of dissension, preliminary signs that Lawrence Okolie may be changing his decorum very soon from Matchroom to some other banner and some other management company, as he's currently managed by 258 Management, who I mentioned earlier. Not surprising, the UK market has become a very competitive market, and I talked about that when Matchroom parted ways with Sky Sports and Sky decided to carve out a lane of their own. In many ways, poaching fighters, some former Matchroom alums.
Fighters you grew accustomed to seeing on Matchroom shows like April Hunter and Savannah Marshall, Joseph Parker,
Michael Hunter, Huey Fury, perhaps in the very near future, Lawrence Okolie. If Lawrence Okolie means to change his decorum in the very near future, I'd wager that he ends up on Sky and Boxer before he ends up on BT in Queensbury.
Sky's the bigger platform.
It's cutthroat season over there in the UK boxing market that I told you has become quite competitive. It seems that Eddie Hearn has made Hannah Rankin a sizable offer to box his girl Terry Harper when Hannah was originally supposed to be boxing Natasha Jonas on Sky, and the same seems to be true in reverse.
Two can play that game.
They can if Lawrence Okolie ends up leaving Matchroom and DAZN for Sky and Boxer, if that's the way that cookie crumbles. In truth, that's not the only other outfit in town. There is Queensbury and BT. There's also Wasserman.
But those other outfits ain't got the means, the money, and the muscle that Sky Sports has as a platform.
Lawrence Okolie is a champion now, likely looking for the big fights and the unification matches, and Matchroom hasn't had much luck getting him those kinds of fights on that front. We know that Mayris Breedis is supposed to be in action early next month in Australia, and he seems to be looking at a Richard Riakporhe fight as opposed to a unification match with Lawrence Okolie. No word on Arsene Goulamarian, France's own WBA champion.
A Don King's horse in the race, Lunga Makabu.
Does Lawrence blame Matchroom? Does he blame Eddie Hearn? Does he blame 258 Management for having not gotten the big fights yet? Or is it put simply that somebody made him a better offer for better money than he's making?
Yeah, because it doesn't even have to be hard feelings. Money talks.
And when it does, people listen. Perhaps Lawrence listened. Perhaps someone out there made him an offer to cross over to, I don't know, Sky Sports and Boxer, where they've got a cruiserweight stallion of their own and what could be built into a potential UK super fight.
If they can put a cruiserweight title in Richard Riakporhe's hands,
and they can get Lawrence Okolie to leave Matchroom and DAZN, cross over to their side of things, well, there you have it.
that would be a domestic affair and a major unification match.
Surely, we don't know what's going to happen yet, but we see what it looks like.